And then I have a few choice questions that I've got from people who are not here today that I'll be using or if they don't get asked along the way. The candidates drew, the first candidate to speak is Norm. You're number one. So if you get up and give us your position on the race, I would appreciate it.
Good morning. Good morning. I wanted to share with you what a pleasure it is to be with a group of people who are like-minded in their beliefs and their thoughts and ideas about what is good and what is needed in our state and in our nation. So many times we are in mixed company and we have to battle to get our ideas and thoughts across. But in this group, I know that we all think along the same lines. We all work out of the same playbook. And also want to say that it's an honor to have represented you in the State House for the last year. I look forward to our short session in May. And at the same time, it's an honor also to be running for the State Senate, which will cover this county and bring Carteret into the mixture that we already represent, most of Craven and all of Pamlico. And so I look forward to serving in that capacity if I'm fortunate enough to be elected. You know, I come this morning and I just want to stand on what we as Republicans did when we finally took control of the State House and the State Senate in 2010. There were a lot of obstacles in our way. There were a lot of problems that our state was facing. And we went into Raleigh with determination to face those problems, to make those decisions. We went in with the mandate that we had received from our constituents. A lot of us, the largest freshman class that ever had gone into Raleigh at one time, into the Republican caucus or any other caucus, had been out on the streets. We won a lot of seats that we were told we couldn't win or we didn't have an opportunity to win. It was going to be tough. And so we did it the old-fashioned way. We went door to door. We looked people in the eye and told them, asked them first what they thought our problems were, and then we told them what we were going to do about it. And so my platform today is that we went to Raleigh and did exactly what we said we were going to do. We balanced the budget and at the same time had the largest tax decrease in the state history of North Carolina. We allowed some surcharges, some tax surcharges to expire that even now we know we're going to have to face this again. The word is already on the street that in May, Governor Perdue is going to try to reinstate at least 3/4 of that 1% that we allowed to expire. And I can tell you right now, from what I understand, it's dead on arrival. It will not happen. We will continue to hold fast to our Republican conservative views. We will continue to look for ways to reduce the size of government. We will continue to look for ways to make government more efficient. We will continue to look for ways to do what government is designed to do and not anymore to get out of the lives of the private citizens in our state so that they can, once again, they can take control of their lives and not be concerned about how government is going to interfere with them next week or next month or next year. We all know, we are smart enough to know in this room, we know what government was designed to do and what it's supposed to be doing. And it has grown so outside of those boundaries in the last 25 to 50 years, it's just amazing at what operates out of our capital in Raleigh. It is sometimes just overwhelming to see the actual number of people who come to work every day in our state capital. And I'm saying, you know what? I remember a time when we used to do a whole lot more with a whole lot less. And so we can do it again. We also tackled some issues like eminent domain, like forced annexation. We strengthened our Second Amendment rights. We went after the waste and fraud in our welfare system. We went after we tried to reform or did reform our laws that govern unemployment. We took a lot of heat. We went into the education system. And I'm going to tell you what, that is a system that is just, it is so big and so complicated that hardly anybody can figure out what is going on and who's getting what and who's spending what and where it's being spent. All I know is that we're spending a lot of money, over half of our state budget on education, and what we're getting for that money I'm going to tell you what, it is not adequate. It is not what we expect as taxpayers. We made some cuts in education, and we did it because we have to, because money is not the problem in our education system. There's a whole lot of things that are standing in the way of us producing the kind of product that we want to see coming out of our schools, and that's what we went after. And like I said, we were told we were going to destroy the education. In fact, we were told we were going to destroy everything in Raleigh. That there wasn't anything going to be left standing, that we were going to take away everything that had been set up to help people. And you know what? It just didn't happen. It just didn't happen. Once again, the lies from the other side did not come true, and they won't come true next time. And so we're going to go back in May, and we're going to readjust the budget. We'll do whatever we need to do. We have a little bit of extra revenue, but not a whole lot. And we'll go back and we'll make those tough decisions again, and we'll stand against tax increases, and we'll stand against those things that we know you sent us to Raleigh to stand against. Because it's not about me, it's not about the other 119 representatives or the 50 senators, it's about the people back here. You know what you need in your lives to be able to live your lives the way you want to, and that's what we intend to go back and to give you. So I appreciate this opportunity to be in this group. I feel, you know, and know that a lot of you are just personal friends, regardless of how this comes out. You're still going to be friends, and I still think this is the best place in North Carolina to live, and I just appreciate being able to represent you.
Here, folks. Debugging it.
I don't know if that's going to... Can you hear me back there?
Yeah.
Guess so. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for taking part in the this great process that we enjoy here in the United States of America. I am Ken Jones. I'm the second-term mayor of the town of Pine Knoll Shores. I've done a lot of things that I'm going to talk about, and I also want to tell you about what I intend to do going forward as your senator. In my money-making life, I'm a financial planner, small business owner. I've been doing that for 15 years. Before that time, I had a career in the United States Air Force. A lot of people ask me, hey, were you enlisted or officer? And my answer is yes. I was both. I got to do both, so that was great. But back to the financial planning aspect, and this is what really has affected my 2 terms as mayor. I always ask my employees, what do we do? What do we do simply here in the office? And it's only 3 words. We solve problems. They say all kinds of things like, you know, we sell investments, we do insurance, all that kind of stuff. No, we solve problems. We organize retirement, set up retirement funds, and save for retirement for people. We plan for early deaths, we plan for all kinds of stuff like that. But the bottom line is, we solve problems. The other thing I do is, people come in and, I'll be darned, you may know some people like that, they spend more than they make. Anybody? Yeah. They spend more than they make, and everybody in here has an uncle that does that. Yeah. We must be related, see?
Right.
Yeah. So what I do, see that one? Let's try this another way.
Yeah.
There you go.
What we do is, of course, I don't tell people to go out and get another job. In other words, increase revenues, but we find a better way to organize that money, be more efficient, and do it smarter. I did the same thing as mayor of Pine Knoll Shores. I cut the taxes last year. Is that okay? Nobody complained. Nobody complained. So, as your senator, there's 3 main areas I want to address. Number 1 is the economy. We live in a country that has the highest corporate tax rate in the world. And then you come to North Carolina, and is the tax rate low or high here? Okay, that was a rhetorical question. It's high. Exactly. So then we are here in North Carolina, we're trying to bring industry here, and they don't want to come. You think we know why already? Yeah, it's the tax structure, and it's the same way at the federal level. We now are in a situation here in North Carolina, and I know the gas tax thing is really popular. Used to be there was a cap to the gas tax and no bottom. Now there's a bottom to it and no cap. We went in the wrong direction in that way. I'm not in favor of using taxpayer money as incentive to bring businesses or companies here. I'm in favor of correcting the tax laws and putting an environment in place that will make companies want to be here, and that'll employ people. The other thing is, being a small business guy, as I am, and probably a lot of people in this room are, it's not easy to start a small business in North Carolina, and a little more difficult to keep it afloat. If 80% of the people in North Carolina are employed by a small company, shouldn't we make the laws more efficient for them? Absolutely, and cut down on paperwork. And hopefully, going forward, as Republicans, that'll keep taking place. Second thing, or second point, is education. The answer is not throwing more money at it. As I said earlier, we don't need to raise more revenues, we need to be smarter about it. Going forward, we need to provide 2 different tracks, at least 2, maybe 3, for students to go. The governor's come out and said we need some trade schools. We have the community colleges, and that's what they were there for. Yes. So let's just be smarter about doing that. When people go through high school, they should be allowed to take a track for college, those people that are absolutely positively going to go to college, and then there are people that don't want to go to college, and they should be able to learn a trade as they go. And if they need to, they can go to the community college and learn it, but they can still become professionals and active members in society and have a skill. Third area I want to focus on is infrastructure. And when I talk about infrastructure, I'm not just talking about our roads, I'm also talking about the port. The port in Morehead City, the deepest port in the state of North Carolina, by the way, should be run like a business, probably, shouldn't it? Yeah, it should be, like the government should be, actually. I'm also talking about our waterways, our inlets, our railroads. We do have some railroad problems in this state. I'm the Senate appointee to the Eastern Region Economic Development Commission. And I was asked to be on that by somebody you probably have heard of before, Gene Preston? Okay, a lot of head shaking, yes and no. So, yeah, I am on that, and I'm keenly aware of what Eastern North Carolina needs. We represent 13 counties, including Craven, Carteret, and Pamlico. And what we do is we bring jobs here. We try to make things more efficient, try to get companies to come here. But I'll be darned if some of the laws in Raleigh aren't very helpful. And that's one of the things that caused me to want to run for this office, because I know what needs to be done. Another thing in infrastructure, I look at our historic areas. We have a historic, a lot of historic areas here in Eastern North Carolina. Tryon Palace. We need to make sure those places are taken care of, because we get a few tourists here, and they go to those places. They go to our beaches. We need to take care of those places and our heritage. That's extremely important. I always say that the best government is the government that's closest to the people, because you can reach out and touch them, right? That's a good thing. When I first became mayor in Pine Mill Shores, I was standing out by the road, my neighbor came over and she said, "Ken, now that you're mayor, what do we call you?" And I said, "Now that I work for you, I guess you can call me anything you want." So as your senator, I want to have town hall meetings. I want to have one town hall meeting a month, somewhere in the district. Now there's 3 counties in the district, so hopefully in every area, or every county rather, during the quarter, but it depends on what's going on. We need to focus on the problems. And I don't want to do this because I want to talk. I want to do this because I want to hear what people have to say. And that's one of the things I've done in Pine Mill Shores as well, is I've heard it over and over and over again. You have the most open government that I've ever seen. Before we pass the budget, I personally get up before at least 4 or 5 meetings and brief the budget to everybody and take questions. I call that little exercise Stump the Dummy. But anyway, that's very important, because after all, like I said, the best government is the government that's closest to the people. Having said that, I want you to know I'm energized, I'm a conservative, I'm experienced, and I'm a leader. And I appreciate your vote in this primary. Thank you very much.
All invited me to come up, and you know, it's not often that you get to see such an energized group of people who are involved in the process and who want to be part of the process. And for me to have the opportunity to address you this morning is truly a privilege. My name is Randy Ramsey. I am running along behind these 2 guys, also for the Senate seat in District 2. I'm speaking behind them this morning. I don't mind telling you, these guys got great ideas. They're passionate, and they understand the same thing I understand, that we have to have strong leadership in eastern North Carolina, specifically in our district. Now, before I get talking about that, let me tell you just a little bit about me. I'm a small business owner in Carter County. I basically grew up in Carter County alongside a fish house. I bring that up because as I was growing up, I saw a thriving economy in eastern Carter County and Pamlico County. I saw people who were enthused and who were making a good living. I cannot say that's necessarily the case today. As I started my business 25 years ago, building boats, it was a fairly, I still lived the American dream. I thought we could still achieve if we worked hard, had a few breaks, and people believed in us. Over the last 25 years, we've had the opportunity to grow, we've had the opportunity to build our business, and we've had the opportunity to build a one-of-a-kind industrial park in eastern Carter County. I bring that up because today, I truly believe that if we tried to build the same industrial park that we built about 14 years ago, the rules and regulations in our state would not allow that to happen. As I go throughout the state, I try to talk to people, and I go out on the roads and we drive around and we step out and we talk to farmers and developers. And the one thing that rings true every time, as these gentlemen have pointed out, is our government is in our business. I personally believe that has got to stop. I do not see any way that we can continue to foster our economy, leave opportunity for our children, and go forward in a positive manner as long as the regulations are absolutely choking our economy. It doesn't matter what sector you go in, whether it's development, whether it's light industry, whether it's industry, whether it's the ports, which have been brought up here this morning. And the port, how about the port? As we think about our port, we constantly are hearing people tell us about how our port is not profitable. And it certainly isn't profitable. Well, let's think about that for a minute. Now, we've already talked about the gas tax. By the way, Virginia and South Carolina, who also have very nice ports, are 20 cents a gallon less than we are for gas tax, roughly. It's an average, 19 point something. We have one rail spur, one 4-lane highway with more than 50 stoplights between here and Raleigh. So if you do bring something into our port, how easy is it to transport it out of our port? It's very difficult. If we go to the port of Charleston, we go to the port of Norfolk, for that matter, the port of Wilmington, we have great infrastructure. We have great opportunity and great way to transport those products. Central coastal North Carolina, in particular our counties, it is my belief, have been left behind. I do not believe we've received our fair share. I do not believe that we have had the leadership or the placement in the legislature that we deserve. Every time I drive from Raleigh to Nags Head, North Carolina, I am amazed by the basic interstate highway that runs from Raleigh to Nags Head. When I go over the 5-mile-long bridge that bypasses Mann's Harbor, I am stunned by the hundreds of millions of dollars that were spent there, all because of very strong leadership that believed we had to support the northeastern coast. We need that kind of leadership here. We need conservative leadership. We need Republican leadership. We need people who will go to Raleigh and protect our district. I spent a lot of time recently talking about the Cherry Point Marine Corps base right up the street. And I know all of you know how important it is. Many of you are veterans. But do you realize it's $2 billion of direct effect to our economy every year in these 3 counties? $2 billion in direct effect. If we do not band together, if we do not get aldermen, county commissioners, mayors, your senator, your representatives, Governor McCrory, and many others, yeah, we're going to elect him, aren't we? I hope so, yeah. And we're going to get somebody else out of the White House, right? Nobody wants to do that? I want to. If we do not do that, if we do not work together, if we don't lobby together, if we don't work hard together, we stand a chance of losing that. I was quite disturbed to find out they just spent $500 million in the Beaufort, South Carolina Marine Corps Air Station. $500 million. I think that place is out in pretty good condition. We've got to work together, we've got to educate ourselves, and we've got to work hard to keep that industry. Now many of the things you've heard and said and talked about recently, you've asked about me. It's been widely publicized. People say, Randy, you gave money to Beverly Purdue. Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to address that right now. I did. There's no denying it. I gave money to Beverly Purdue. You see, I'm a businessman. I'm not a politician. I've never run for a seat. I've never put myself out here. And as a businessman, my belief was, along with many other businessmen in our 3 counties, that if we wanted a voice, we had to donate to the party that was in charge. You see, because unfortunately for 100 years, the Democratic Party has been in charge of our state. I also further believe that because our current governor was from New Bern, North Carolina, which I believe is where I am, that she would understand the unique issues we face in coastal North Carolina and would help us. I'm sorry to say I've been very disappointed. And that is much of the reason I'm running. I'm sorry?
Okay, go on.
Well, I'll be glad to let you talk to him.
No.
That is a lot of the reason I'm running. Because I believe, and I've been disappointed in what we have seen in Raleigh. I spent yesterday in Raleigh at the committee meetings, the joint committee meeting for transportation, with Senator Preston talking about this ferry toll. Those are the type things we have to change in North Carolina. We cannot continue to tax our working people. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I'm grateful for the opportunity to run for this, and I'm very grateful to see so many people involved in the process. I'm sure I'm getting low on time. So I'm just going to end very, very easily. Whatever you do, whomever out of these 3 people come out of the primary, let's ensure that person is elected to the state senate. Let's don't let anybody else get elected. Let's ensure that Pat McCrory is our governor. Let's ensure that we keep the House of Representatives Republican, and let's ensure that President Obama is voted out.
Thank you. A couple of times. Also to Scott Thomas, when we had Chuck Tyson running at that time. If you knew, can you explain to me, if you knew that McCrory was going to run, and we all knew that a year ago, why did you give to her? I mean, McCrory could have used that money for running too. I mean, you know, I think everybody, I mean, my feeling is that everybody would have been tired of Perdue and how she ran the state and would be pushing for somebody new.
Okay, I'll be glad to answer that. Senator McCrory, at that time, Mayor McCrory actually came to my boatyard and met with me for about a half hour when he was running last time. He sat down in my office and we discussed the issues associated with Eastern North Carolina and his platform and his reasons for running. During that conversation, I told him that because current Governor Perdue was from coastal North Carolina, I felt like I needed to support her. That I thought she understood our issues, and I felt like that was where my allegiance should lie. I will further tell you that he understood that reason. About 10 days ago, I met with I hope future Governor McCrory in Raleigh, North Carolina. He and I sat down alone for about an hour. We talked about the same issues, the issues that face business in Eastern North Carolina. And he understands at this point that I support him fully, and I am donating to his campaign. Governor McCrory, also, future Governor McCrory, also said that he appreciated the position he felt I was in, and that he too had been disappointed in what had happened in our governor's office, and that he appreciated my support now. And in fact, we're going to have a real big fundraiser for him in early June, and I'll be glad to get you an invitation if you'd like to come back.
I'd be glad.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Do we have any more? Let me get this one.
Paul, this is going to go to Norm and to Ken because unfortunately Mr. Ramsey did not respond to the questionnaire from Civitas. Number 36, the North Carolina should implement a state health insurance exchange to comply with the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, which is Obamacare. Norm, you agreed with that, and Ken, you disagreed with it. Can you give us your reasons?
Ken, I'll let you go first, Ken.
I'd be happy to go first. Thank you. Good question. I'm against Obamacare, period. I want the federal government out of as much business of mine and yours as possible. The government the federal government, that's what we're really addressing here and how that's going to apply to North Carolina, is unwieldy at this time. They don't even have an idea of what's going on. The left hand's going one way and the right hand's going the other. I think everybody can agree to that. I think the Department of Education at the federal level needs to go away as well. Because back to the best government is the government that's closest to the people. If we don't know how to educate the people in our own state or in our own counties, the federal government sure doesn't know how to do it. So I would just assume the federal government stayed out as much as possible. I would be happy if the federal government would focus on a few areas, common defense, common currency, et cetera, but not too many because it looks like they can't handle it. So I'm in huge favor of shrinking the federal government a lot, period. Thank you very much.
Yeah, let me just preface about the healthcare exchange. The second bill that we took up in the State House and in the State Senate when we went to Raleigh in 2011 was House Bill number 2, and that bill was healthcare protection, which protected the citizens of North Carolina from Obamacare. We passed that, and it was vetoed as we thought it would be. One of the mandates that came down to the states from Obamacare, and Obamacare did become law, and until the Supreme Court overturns it, it is law. One of the mandates that came down was that each state had the opportunity to set up this healthcare exchange, which was a nonprofit organization with members being appointed by the governor, by the Speaker of the House, by the President of the Senate, and we either had to do it or the federal government was going to do it for us. If we did it on the time span that we had, the federal government paid for it, and it saved the citizens of this state thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. If we had not had done that, then the federal government would have come, they would have chosen the people on that board, and the citizens of North Carolina would have had to pay for it. And so we began the process of putting that in place to meet the time deadline so that we wouldn't have to spend any more tax dollars on Obamacare. I'm really praying that Obamacare, that the U.S. Supreme Court kick out especially the individual mandate, and that if that happens, then Obamacare will go away. And this thing will never have any consequence whatsoever. It will be just another committee that was appointed that will end up in a closet somewhere and have no effect on anything that happens in our healthcare industry.
Thank you, Mark.
Don? Thank you, sir. My question is to Mr. Ramsey. I can appreciate the fact that you have given over $36,000 to the Democrats in North Carolina. I can appreciate the reason why you particularly singled out Beverly Perdue and giving her money. However, you're running for Gene Preston's seat, as the other two gentlemen are too. You have never given a dime to Gene Preston, although she's been our senator for years and years and years, and in the House of Representatives for years prior to that. Have you ever given any money to the Republican Party other than $2,700?
Well, it's all public record, so no, sir. That would be the amount of money I've given. Jean Preston is a very dear person. I think she's done a terrific job for 20 years in our legislature. I admire her, and I think a great deal of her. I'm not sure how I did not give her money, but I can tell you one thing, she never asked for it. And I don't know about you, but if somebody doesn't ask me, seldom do I just send it to them. That is not a particularly good excuse. Senator Preston, I think, has certainly solidified this seat, which, as we know, was a hugely held Democratic seat for years and years and years. And to that much, I believe we're all greatly indebted to her. But no, sir, I did not contribute.
Well, in addition to that, Gene Preston has asked all Republicans at one time or another, please contribute to my campaign, of which I did, and I'm sure a lot of people here did. But you didn't.
No, sir, I didn't. But I can tell you, I sat down with her and asked her if she would, what she thought of me running for her seat. And she thought it'd be a good idea, and she'd be honored for that to happen. So she must not be too angry.
Okay. Next, over here. Yes, please.
Did Sweet Beverly ask you for some money?
I was invited to numerous fundraisers, and yes, sir, she did.
You did what?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. You've been living in this state how long?
My entire life, sir.
And you didn't want to wear that Beverly was shady?
Okay, I'm kind of a new guy here.
That's okay.
And I just want to know that all these three gentlemen that were up there need to know one thing. They're not representing Craven County, Carteret County, which I heard a lot about, and Pamlico County. You're representing the people of North Carolina. I've had a house in April. I've lived all over just about North Carolina, and I don't never want to send one person up there to help out one place. That's not what we're sending there for. They're going up there as a group to help the state of North Carolina be the best that it can be. And if you go up there with any other attitude, then you've let us all down. I have one more thing to say. On the Obamacare, if you think that they didn't have the death panel, I turned 79 in February. In February, I was told I was too old for back surgery. I have 3 discs, or bone on bone. So, when most of you look like you're eating, you're getting close to me or whatnot.
Talk in the press over the last few months about immigration and the rights of the illegal immigrants, the rights that they have to receive federal money, state money, etc. I would like to know what your position is on this subject.
Randy, I'm working my way around, so you get to respond first.
I'll tell you what's the truth, I need to just stand up all the time. From my perspective, it's pretty easy. I do not think we need to have illegal immigrants in the United States.
Can't hear you.
I do not think we need to have illegal immigrants in the United States. I do not think they need to be competing for our tax dollars that go to other people who may need a hand up in our country. And I didn't say welfare, I said a hand up. I absolutely am against keep benefits for illegal aliens. I think they should go back where they came from. I further think we need to have identification at the polls for voting. And that has been demonstrated in a video. If you have not seen it, you need to search for it. It's absolutely unbelievable how easy it was for somebody to go obtain someone else's ballot. And I think that is something that we absolutely have to address and have to do something about now. There's a short answer for you.
Ken?
Thank you. First of all, I don't call them illegal immigrants. I call them illegal aliens. I'm gonna stick with that. Oh, whoops! Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. I don't call them illegal immigrants. I call them illegal aliens. I don't think they have any constitutional rights because they're not even supposed to be here. Hence the term illegal, right? Back to the federal government. Close the border. Let's have a national language, and what do you say we call it English instead of having everything in 2 different languages? That makes it more difficult to do business again in this country because every business has to have it in 2 different languages. Every time you pick up the phone and call someplace, they ask you if you habla, right? No, I don't need to do that because I'm in the United States of America. I'm dead set against anybody spending any money on anybody that's not supposed to be here. That's the bottom line. Thank you.
And my feelings are much like these gentlemen. You know, last year we expanded the effect of the E-Verify system to include folks who do any kind of work for the government. I think we need to go back in and expand it even more and make it mandatory for everybody who hires anybody anywhere that they need to use that E-Verify system to determine the status of workers in our state. We have to go in and we have to identify the people who are here illegally because they are draining our state systems, they are draining our entitlement systems, they are draining our school system. They are spending millions and millions of dollars of taxpayer money in North Carolina, and a lot of them, the only thing they're giving back is a little bit of sales tax on what they buy. And if you know what I know, a lot of our illegals don't buy in your mainstream stores. They go to secondhand stores and buy stuff so they don't even have to pay the income tax, state tax on it. And so we have to get a handle on that, and it's very evident that the federal government is not going to do anything. Maybe when we get a Republican president back in office, that they'll have the nerve to tackle this problem once and for all and close our borders. But until then, the states are going to have to take this thing up, and they're going to have to do it themselves. And you know, I am totally against. I know one of the things that our federal government needs to change, and the states need to support this, is that just because a person is born in this country doesn't make them an automatic citizen. We have hundreds of thousands, well, maybe not that many, but we have thousands and thousands of women coming across our borders illegally that are pregnant, because they know if they can get to this country and have that baby, that that's going to make their baby as an automatic citizen, and it's going to play on the sympathy of Americans so that we don't send a mother back to Mexico and make the child stay here. And so we've got to tackle that problem. But you know, if the people in this state knew how much money was being spent on the illegal aliens in our state that pay nothing in our system, you would be in an uproar. And I'm going to tell you what, they'd do marches on Raleigh, and that's what needs to happen.
As far as the and I think Jeff will agree with me on this, one of the biggest problems we have on the coast is economic development right now. We have unemployment ratio over 10% in Craven County. And you brought up the business about ports. And one of the problems we have is we're losing a lot of our business in our economic development because South Carolina is getting most of the port work, and Virginia. And the only way we're going to get our ports to be built up is through highway construction. We've got to get highways that bring our private industry to our ports. And that's where I want to know how you're going to do that.
Well, I'm going to get out of the quagmire here first. But, oh, whoops, okay. I keep forgetting this thing. The problem, and I'm only going to address one port, the one in Morehead City, because I think that's the one that most people here are concerned with. That port has picked up some activity. You know, what frustrates me is when the military takes their stuff down to South Carolina to ship it out too. The deepest port in the state of North Carolina is not Wilmington, as most people would suggest, because they think it's bigger, it's got to be deeper. It's not. You can't go any deeper there because there's rock underneath it. So Morehead City is a lot deeper. Should be a lot more accessible, should be a lot better used. One of the problems we have, or have had, I think, with the port in Morehead City is nobody's been a good neighbor. And I think that's starting to change now. Morehead City was not a good neighbor to the port was not a good neighbor to Morehead City. The bridge that goes between Morehead and Beaufort is just a two-laner, and that's a problem as well. That the whole infrastructure, the highway system to get to that port needs to be simplified by a long shot. They're now moving fuselage parts for Airbus components. The airplanes are being put together in France. They're moving them from Kinston to the port in Morehead City. How do you think that goes, trying to haul an airplane fuselage through all those traffic lights? You're absolutely right, Tom. We need to fix that, and in order to do that, I think we need to address the highway system overall in that area and make it a lot more efficient, and separate the hazardous cargo from places that are going to affect people directly. A lot of people probably know about the smelting operation that was discussed down there last year, or almost forced down people's throats last year, I'll call it that. And it just wasn't, again, it was a bad neighbor thing. Nobody was talking to anybody. And like I said earlier, the best government is a government that's close to the people. That just wasn't shared. And that's totally wrong. And that would have affected industry around this whole region, no question about it, because the tourists wouldn't have come here anymore either. So we certainly need to address the highway system and make that a lot simpler. That's the bottom line. There's a better way than we have it now, there's no question about it, with the bridges and the lack of ability for cars to transfer from one area to the other, or trucks hauling cargo. Is that?
Yeah, well, I'm going by private business, basically coming out of Rocky Mount. Those people up there are complaining they have no way to get their goods to our port.
Right.
And you're right, Wilmington is being dredged, and you know, there's only so much you can dredge out of that.
Right.
But we do have the port that we could use.
Absolutely.
But we've got to get the highways built to get the people to the port.
I've been saying that for years, Tom. I agree wholeheartedly. We have to do this right. Doing it behind people's backs is not the right way to do it, but we have to get a smoother way. And, you know, I think about this often because I sit with the port folks in Morehead City just about every month. And from an economic development perspective, you know, I work with the Economic Development Commission there in Morehead City or Carteret County, and I talk about this. You know, what about Highway 101? What about a bypass to get straight to the port? I know that would solve the problem. And speaking of that problem, you know, Highway 40 is a great highway. Interstate 40 is a great thing that gets to the port of Wilmington, but it doesn't even go all the way. So they messed that up too. But, oops, okay. Thank you.
Nor you want me to talk more? No, well, I'll make it first.
Okay. You know, Ken hit on that very well. We in Eastern North Carolina have got to pool our resources as far as our legislative leaders are concerned and get the money that we need down here to get this highway system in place instead of getting the leftovers, which it seems like we get a whole lot of the time. Because of the population differences in Eastern North Carolina and the central part of the state, that's where most of our money goes. You know, one of the things that we need to look at doing, and you know, North Carolina owns a railroad. The problem is that we've leased that railroad to a private company that's got it for I don't know how many more years. But North Carolina needs to look at taking over their own railroad, and instead of investing federal money or investing money in light rail to haul a few passengers between Charlotte and Raleigh, we ought to be looking at putting another spur from Rocky Mount, from up in that area, all the way to Morehead City to our port, so we have 2 tracks instead of 1. That would allow us not only to run passenger service, but to run freight service too. You know, I've often looked at the port, and I've asked myself the question, why in the world doesn't the port of Morehead City have a medium-sized or even a large one of these pleasure cruise boats coming in? Just think of the money that would bring in the off-season, where instead of having to drive all the way to Florida to get on one of these boats, you come to Morehead City and get on one of these boats. And if we had 2 rails, you could even come by train, which would be another part of the experience. We have the restaurants in place, we have the living accommodations in place down there to bring those people in. And we've had some interest in that before, but because of the transportation system, it's hard for people to get back and forth. So if we'll solve our transportation system, I think our port in Morehead City is unlimited to what we can bring in and raise revenue. It's a gold mine. If we can finally get somebody, we did transfer that out from under the department it used to be under, so I'm hoping that they will take a closer look at it. Our agricultural products, it's a gold mine just transferring the agricultural products out of Eastern North Carolina and not having to haul them by truck. And so there's a lot of possibilities. We got to pool our resources, pool our down east strength in the legislature, the Senate, and the House, and make something like this happen.
Okay, Mr. Pruitt?
I just wanted to say, Ken, you were talking about being on the Transportation Committee. That study that, there was a study that was just completed not too long ago regarding the ports, and all that was pretty expensive. Is any of the planning that was suggested by that study in place at this point in time?
Make it short and sweet, are we?
Short and sweet, that's me. Yes and no, and I say that because just as Paul said earlier, the ports are now under the Department of Transportation, and if you take something the size of the port system in the state of North Carolina, which includes 4 ports, by the way, there's 2 inland ports, and put it under the Department of Transportation, do you think it has a whole lot of priority right off the bat? No. And I always wonder about that in DOT. Anybody ever worked with DOT before? Anybody ever worked for DOT? Maybe I should ask that first.
Do you have a shovel to lean on?
That was a direct hit, so thank you. He summed it up for me right there. But there is a lot of stuff being looked at with regard to that, and I say that because from the economic, I'm sorry, Paul, here I go again. From the economic development position, we do want to get more rail to it. We have a couple problems in North Carolina with rail that we need a section, let's say it's 5 miles long, to bring 2 places together, so we can do more cargo, ship more cargo to the port, but that's not in place at this point. And what that has done is that has brought the trucks down the road, which of course the roads then need to be resurfaced and you need to pay more in gas tax, and no, we don't need to do that. Anyway, so it's being looked at, yes sir. There's a couple other things that are being looked at with regard to that. Everybody familiar with biofuels, of course. In the Economic Development Commission, we're looking at putting a biofuels plant, trying to get somebody down here to do that for the Department of Defense, because it's a Department of Defense mandate that the fuel that is used on military bases has to be a biofuel, has to be a fuel that's pulled together with bioproducts. In other words, we can go grow the grains and stuff in Eastern North Carolina to make that happen. And we tried it, but we had to put it on a truck and haul it to Pennsylvania in order to do it. So we're looking at having one of those here in eastern North Carolina because we have the places that burn the fuel, the military bases. The 4 major installations in North Carolina overall need that fuel. That's economic development as well. And my hope is we transport that stuff to the port and send it to the other military bases. Right now the port's used for a lot of agricultural or bulk product, they call it. You know, the little wood pellets that we ship to England because they're doing away with all the coal plants and anyway. Thank you.
Yes, since none of the candidates addressed the marriage amendment, I'm going to assume that they are in favor of gay marriage, and I'd like to
Let me figure out who gets to ask that one. Answer that one. You want to take it, Norm? Okay, I got it.
Linda, stand up. And that's the only way it should be. That's how God intended it, and that's the way we need to keep it. Folks can do whatever they want to in the privacy of their homes or in wherever they go to do whatever they do. But don't try to come and force me to accept your way of lifestyle, because I don't accept it. I think it's an abomination to God, and I do not go along with it. We took a lot. You should have seen the gay marches that we had in Raleigh when this was on the ballot, or when this came up for a vote. I've never seen so much pink in one place in my whole life. But you know, this marriage amendment, and I've been reading the news articles, and I'm seeing pastors come out against this marriage amendment, and I'm saying, man, that I do not want to be with them on Judgment Day. You know, this is what we need to do in North Carolina. There's a case right now pending in Asheville, I believe it's Asheville, that's working its way through the court system, and it has the propensity to do exactly what other states have done, what other lone wolf judges have done, and overturn the law that we have in North Carolina. And if that happens, it will be very, very difficult to get it back. Let's pass this marriage amendment. Let's make it part of our Constitution once and for all, so that it would be almost impossible to come back and change it again.
There's certainly not much that can be said behind what Representative Sanderson just had to say. I completely agree. I think we have to band together, and just like we have to get certain people out of office, and just like we have to elect certain elected officials, we have to ensure that this amendment passes. And I know that we can count on all of you all to be at the polls to help us make sure that happens.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
I promise I'll keep it short. I was asked this, and sorry for the assumption, Jerry, wrong. I was asked this at another meeting, and I said, one man, one woman. Next question, please. Yeah. And so that's really what I believe. We need to pass the marriage amendment because that's what our society has come to. Unfortunately, we went for over 200 years without that. Why are we at this point now? I hate the fact that we're there, but in order to preserve what's proper and what's right, we need to pass the marriage amendment. No two ways about it. Thank you.
Okay, I'm looking for more hands. Okay. Yes, please.
First of all, I don't know a lot of you guys. My name is Lee Hodge. I'm a new lawyer in town. Look forward to working with you guys to elect Pat McCrory governor and whichever one of these fine gentlemen comes out of this primary. I have a question for Representative Sanderson that I haven't heard him address throughout this process, and it deals with the proper role of the federal government and the state government. Your daycare in Havelock has borrowed money from institutions that get all their money from the federal government. So my question is, explain to this group, I'm sure this whole group believes small government is the way to go. Can you explain to us why loaning money to businesses, and we have banks on every corner of the street, is a proper function of the state or federal government?
So I'll be glad to, and then just to address the loan thing. Yes, my daycare took out a loan through Neuse River Development many years ago because we had been term bound by two of our local banks. We did not have the business profile that they were looking for. We did not have the length of time in business. We were fairly new. And so that was our only option, was to go to something like that and to borrow that money, and that's what we did. And that money has been returned, paid back, and so I'll go with that. You know, I think that like a lot of us do, federal money is not, federal money is still tax money. And it seems like a lot of times when we have federal money that is siphoned down to the states, oh, well, that's free money. Well, no, it's not, because it came out of our pockets originally. I think that every time that we look at getting a grant from the federal government through any state agency or any county agency, we really need to take a hard look at it. I don't recommend it because it always comes with strings attached. I just want us to get to the place where our economy gets to the place where money is available for small businesses. And right now, one of the hardest things that you can ever try to do is for a small business to start up and go somewhere and find somebody that will loan them any money. And so that was the reason that we went in that direction for that time.
Appreciate your answer.
One more, okay, yep.
I'd like to make a statement, and then I've got a couple of questions.
Short statement, one question.
Yes, sir. Purdue says we're a military-friendly state, but our actions don't speak that way. There was no doubt in my mind when North Carolina would not allow an OLM that I felt that was sealed the deal on the Hornets, where we weren't going to get them. I'd like to ask Mr. Ramsey, does he employ illegal immigrants, or does he have contractors or subcontractors that employ illegal immigrants?
That was an interesting leap, but okay.
No, military to illegal immigrants. No, sir, I do not.
Here you go, Randy.
Sorry. No, sir, my company and no subcontractor in my company employs illegals. We have been accused of that, but I can tell you that we do a very diligent job of ensuring that everyone who works for my company is legal to work in the United States and legal to work in North Carolina. There are certain types of work that my company does that we've had difficulty hiring people to do, and we have been forced to have to hire legal aliens or immigrants to work. But everybody there is fully carded, and I would welcome you to come and see their paperwork. I think we've got 4 people, Spanish-speaking, work for my company.
Okay, this is the last call. I'm going to ask a couple of questions, and hopefully these are a yes/no kind of questions, just to get everybody. What is your position on the NEA checkoff, the law that was passed to prevent the state of North Carolina collecting union dues? What's your position on that at this point in time? Ken, I'll just say for or against, or?
I'm against unions, period, so I don't think anybody should be paying dues. That's one of the things that is helping put the United States out of business, in my opinion. So I'm against anything that has anything to do with unions. That pretty much sums that up.
I share Ken's view. I'm completely against unions, and I certainly don't want to see our state collecting union dues.
And I agree, and I'll just say this up front, because when this first came to the floor, I voted against this bill because I thought it not only should include the NCAA or the teachers union, but all. I didn't think state government should be in the business of collecting dues for any organization. Come to find out that when we went back and checked further, the NCEA is probably the most unfriendly organization that operates in the state of North Carolina. And so they were using 95% of the money that they collected from teachers who, a lot of them didn't even want to be there, but they were pressured to be there. And they were using 95% of their dues to finance Democrat candidates, and that was good enough for me. So I'm totally against that, and I'd like to see it go away for all. Unless North Carolina can make some money on it, we'll be glad to take it out of their paychecks, but we need to get a percentage of
it. There's been several claims that the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare Services, the North Carolina part of it, has widespread inefficiencies. When Newt was here earlier this week, he made some comment about the fact that American Express had a loss ratio of about 0.3%, and overall federal version of HHS was losing about 10% on Medicaid, I guess it was. What do we believe we can do here in North Carolina? Are there things available to us, or what's the position of the candidates in trying to get this thing moved forward so we can get the reduction in the loss ratio of these gigantic bills that cost the state of North Carolina a lot of money? I'm gonna try to be equal time here.
Thank you. We've got to do something about the fraud in the system. It's very clear with the small losses that American Express and other credit cards have that there is computer software that's available that we can use to stop this fraud. I think that we are being short-sighted not reform that as well as other state and federal agencies to reduce fraud. There's a company right here in North Carolina named SAS that makes their living figuring out statistics and finding out how people bill and the way people spend their money in statistics. With a company like that here and with that software available, I think we have to reform the system. It clearly will pay for itself many times over.
Okay, thank you. Ken, you go ahead.
I'm sorry. Oh, can you
No,
hear me?
that was to me. That was not to you.
Oh, okay. All of our government systems, whether it's a state or federal level, are susceptible to fraud, waste, and abuse. There's far too much of it, and it's not their money anyway. It's yours and mine. And that's why we need to be even more cognizant as to where it goes. What Newt was talking about the other day was implementing a system similar to what they have as a credit card, where it's swiped and that way it can be accounted for. We know what happened and we know where it went. And that's a great idea. Now, if American Express did it and they made it efficient, and the government can't do it, make it efficient, why don't we privatize it and they'll make it efficient? That makes less government, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Two things. Elect a Republican governor so that we can change department heads from the top down, which will change the way we've been doing things in North Carolina. And the second thing we need to do is to the system that Mr. Ramsey was talking about. I think that was Robert Pittenger, whose company that was, began to save the state money, and because of the people that were in power, they kicked them out and wouldn't let them come in and save any more money. That's a great system. And but if we will put somebody in place that is a state governor who has the gumption, who has the strength to get rid of these folks and not keep them in power any longer, we can make all of this change.
I've got two here, I think, which are yes, no's, and I'll just start off with one of them is mandatory voter ID.
Yes.
Yes?
Absolutely.
Yes. Probably something a little more exciting, okay? How about oil exploration off the coast of North Carolina?
Yes.
Yes? Yes?
I'm going to have to preface that with something.
Okay, please.
The state of North Carolina, I've had people ask me, when can I expect my first royalty check? Because they're drilling for oil. You got to know this. This is very important. There are no laws or rules governing any of that in the state of North Carolina. There's no income tax in Texas. There's no income tax in Alaska. Note they get a royalty check in Alaska, right? That's because they have laws in place that allow for that drilling so that the companies have to pay money to the states. And if the companies are paying money to the states, they're paying...
We get it back.
What's that?
We get it back.
Exactly. Exactly. Because it's your state. It's not theirs. And those laws are not in place in the state of North Carolina. And I know that for a fact. We need to get those in place. We need to look for oil, and we need to drill for it, whether it's on land, out in the Piedmont, or off the coast. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Hearing no more hands, seeing no more hands.
Being here and what you've done, it's a very it's a very difficult job running for office, and I can appreciate what you're going through. I can tell you it's been exciting. It's wonderful going around this district. I heard things today that speak directly to the issue of the federal government. We're too big, the federal government, you all know that. We need to cut the size of the government, but it's also unresponsive. There's things here today that belong in a state, federal, private partnership. The issue of the ports, the infrastructure in eastern North Carolina, jobs in eastern North Carolina, jobs throughout the country. The federal government has never created a job, ever. What we need to do is we need to to get the federal government working with the states and working with private industry to create an environment that produces jobs. That's what we need. Small businesses produce the jobs. And I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to keep moving so it doesn't catch up to me. I'm going to tell you this. We cannot afford a representative who sits in Washington, D.C. and doesn't do a thing, that doesn't talk to the people of Eastern North Carolina and doesn't work to develop a system that makes sense here for us. I promise you this, when you send me to Washington, here's what I'm going to do. Whichever one of these three guys gets elected, I'm going to work with them and the rest of the delegation of Eastern North Carolina and the county commission chairman and the mayors of this district to develop an agenda that I will take back to Washington, D.C., a proactive approach to dealing with our problems, the ones that relate to the federal government. And I promise you, you will see me once a month at a town hall meeting someplace in this district. It's a big district. Because we need the advice and the consent of the people that we govern. And I'm telling you this, three terms in Washington, that's all I'm going to do. I won't take a pension. I won't take special health care that you don't get. I'm here to serve you, not myself. And we need term limits, and we need them now. Thank you very much.